Hey everyone, we're back with another episode of CinemAddicts. Anderson Cowan is not here. He's not here on the first of the month. He's going to be here as per usual, actually moving forward the middle of the month. We love you, Anderson Cowan. So for the first of the month, as per usual, are my co-hosts, my Find Your Film co-hosts. By the way, notice how I say my? It's like a possessive, and it just sounds so vain, exactly right up my speed. Find Your Film co-host, Eric Holmes. How are you, buddy?
Not good, or not not good.
You're not
bad.
good? You're not bad? Okay. You're not bad. And how are you, my Find Your Film and Cinematics co-host, Bruce Purkey? How are you?
I'm fine. I haven't had to release the safe word yet since you own me, apparently. So
Right.
I'm just sitting in the corner. I've got my collar on and my little bowl, which you sometimes throw some gruel into, and I'm fine.
Look, Bruce Purkey is talking a lot of mess right now because I think probably he just, for the 50th time, he probably watched this movie that we're going to cover on Find Your Film called Skullhead Face. More information on that Gwar release from the early 90s. Probably one of Eric Holmes' favorite films of all time, right next to Citizen Kane, Jaws, and what right, Eric Holmes, is spoiler, is this Skullhead Face one of your all-time favorite films?
It's a piece. It's a piece.
That is some tease. Eric Holmes will be again discussing it on Find Your Film. But now here we are at Cinematics, episode 149. We're going to talk about the first 2 weeks of this month. This month being April. What are the couple films that Bruce Purkey and Eric Holmes wants to check out? But before we get to that, little mini plug, Cinematics listeners, if you don't listen to Find Your Film, that's on you. But I think one of the things that I think is value added, and I really hope Anderson will ultimately get to this. Oh, by the way, let me do a little bit of a turn. Eric Holmes just messaged me today with his really big news regarding Anderson Cowan and a movie he really loved. Eric Holmes, can you mention the Romanian film that Anderson really loves with a passion? What is it?
Well, I don't know
What?
how much. I don't know how much he loves it, but he seemed to. I listened to the Film Vault. They had the Vaulties,
Mm-hmm.
and
Their annual award shows, right? That's our annual award thing every year.
yeah,
Balties,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Definitely listen to them back because they're always fun. Just listen to Film Vault in general. It's a fun show.
Great show. Yeah.
But in his also rans, he mentioned a movie called Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn. So
Bad Luck Bang or Looney
right
Porn.
away I thought, ooh, Greg loves that. He'll
No,
be so happy to hear this.
Anderson, why did Anderson mention it? He just mentioned it in passing as a movie that's an honorable mention regarding the Vaulties, as a movie to watch.
Yeah. And I'm guessing he's going to flick fest it more on the next episode of Film Vault. I assume so.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
Yeah.
And again,
So Greg, you have someone on your side about that movie.
I don't know what you're talking about, Eric Holmes, because if I recall, this movie called Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn, considered one of the best films from last year, obviously is a big barrier to entry. A lot of people didn't like it. Well, I guess I was a little bit mixed on that Romanian film. If I recall, maybe I'm losing my memory. Bruce Purkey and Eric Holmes championed the innovation and the narrative just integrity. Bruce Purkey, can you mention that? Weren't you banging on Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn? Is that true, or am I
Yeah, I love walking video games, like walking simulators, and it really filled a gap in that for me. So yeah.
Okay, dry wit. Okay, Eric Holmes, weren't you the one who was really supporting and saying, if you love really interesting, revolutionary indie filmmaking, go see this Romanian film? Were you the one who said that?
No, not at all. I hated the movie, but what I'm really excited about though is to hear Anderson's take on it, and then maybe when Anderson comes back on Cinematics and you and him are talking about it, it'll be fun to hear you guys talk glowingly about it.
Right.
Because I did not like the movie at all. And, we talk about this a lot. This movie is not something I like, but if you like it, I'm definitely interested to hear why. And who knows, maybe turn me around. Probably not, but you never know.
For the record, Bad Luck Bang or Looney Porn was one of my top 10 films from last year. I did not bang the drums on Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn because during the episode, Eric Holmes and Bruce Purkey on Find Your Film actually threatened me and bullied me and told me not to say what I really felt. Is that correct, Bruce Purkey? Were you guys bullying me about Bad Luck Banging?
Yes, we bullied you. Yes.
You see how nonplussed his reaction is? It's just there's no emotion. There's no passion.
Well, I don't want to reveal what I have on you. I got to keep it tight in my pocket so that way when I need to use it, I have it available for me.
Right. And in fairness to Eric and Bruce, Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn, eventually Eric wants to hear us talk about it on this here CinemAddicts. But again, regarding Eric and Bruce's opinion, I believe that will be the popular opinion. Right, Eric? Because Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn, just very quickly, it's just a hard film to watch. Do you agree with that as far as just the average cinephile?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, a lot of the reviews I've heard on it were positive, and I don't understand that. But again, different courses for different horses, as you say.
Yes, different courses for different horses for different courses. But there's different. But you know what?
That's it. Anderson loves Warhorse, and he loves horses.
Again,
that's why he likes this movie.
Bruce Purkey will never let an old joke rest. Steven Spielberg continues to infiltrate our CinemAddicts and mainly our CinemAddicts podcast. Another Steven Spielberg mention. Very good job, Bruce Purkey, on that. Now, speaking of good job, or actually speaking of horse racing and tracks that we are completely on. By the way, I love Jockey. I recently saw it. Bruce and Eric didn't. Would love to hear what you guys think about Jockey. I'm going to have an interview with the Jockey filmmaker on the CinemAddicts podcast pretty soon. But here's something that all three of us agree on. This movie called The Long Walk is just, within the last couple of years, it's written by Christopher Larson, directed by Mattie Do, a friend of the show, of our Find Your Film podcast. And this is just highly recommended, very meditative, sci-fi, thriller, family drama. It's just so many genres blended into one. We've been mentioned here on CinemAddicts how brilliant The Long Walk is, and more often on the Find Your Film podcast. Not more importantly, but just, can you guys, Bruce and Eric, what happened last weekend regarding The Long Walk? The Long Walk last weekend actually turned into The Long Drink. Let's start off with you, Eric. What happened with director Mattie Do from The Long Walk? What did you guys do, and why did you do it?
Well, Bruce and I both ordered the Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome of The Long Walk. And we know our friend from Movie Bears podcast, William Lindis, also did. And we thought, because we've been doing a lot of physical media reviews on Find Your Film, we're like, it'd be fun. Just do like a quick 10, 15-minute thing on the physical media of The Long Walk, talk about the special features and whatnot. And then, just for the hell of it, it's like, she'll probably say no, but maybe we hit up Mattie Do, see if she wants to join us in on the conversation. And her response was, yeah, what time? And we're like, well, that's cool. So then we get together and on a Zoom meeting, figuring we'd do like a quick 10, 15-minute thing. Ended up being about 3.5 hours long. And it was quite epic, and Mattie Do is a fantastic person to hang and share a couple drinks with.
Drinks with? A couple? That's not that. Does that take Bruce? Did you guys have no shame? 3.5 hours. Did she not have to go to bed? What were you guys doing?
Let's see, was it 9:00 when she started her time? So she was only midnight or so on a Saturday. I mean, come on, that's party central. That's right. That's the meat of the party night. So it was all good. Now, on the other hand, we were drinking in the morning. And like when my son popped in, when I popped in there, because I was actually 20 minutes late, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to pop in and just say hi. Sorry, I missed the talk. And then, no, I was there for another 3 hours. But yeah, I was like, you're showing my kid how I day drink. Thank you. And she encouraged it. She didn't seem sorry about that at all.
Wow, Mattie Do, bad influence. Bruce, here's the thing. I'm going to defend Bruce Purkey when he says he was day drinking. He means he was having his yearly intake of O'Doul's and virgin lemonade. So you were drinking, right, Bruce? You were drinking.
No, my kid, who is like too smart for his own good. He's like, oh, Russia. Yay, Russia makes vodka out of potatoes. Let me have a taste of that. No, I'm not letting you have a taste of that, 13-year-old.
Wow, I'm 50 and I didn't even know
so
that.
I will be sending the AA bills and the rehab bills to Mattie in about, hopefully 10 years.
Well, your son's a lot smarter than me. I had no idea that vodka was made out of potatoes, and I'm an idiot. So, Eric, were you coordinated the whole thing? Did it come off swimmingly for you? This long 3.5 hour, the long drink with Mattie Do? Which
it came off better than I could have imagined. Because you did the interview with her, and
yes,
quite honestly, that's what turned me on to her. Like, wow, she just seems like a really cool person. And then when we had her, I think at one point we took a break. It's like we're 2 hours into it. She's like, "Fuck that, let's take a break and keep going." I'm like, "Sweet, I'm down." And so like I'm going through the raw footage of the interview. I'm like, I don't know how we cut this down. I think we just cut it into pieces and just release it like, in 6 parts or whatever.
That's amazing. Yes, and by the way, this interview took place several days ago. Eric Holmes has been emailing me different parts of that long Herman Melville, Moby Dick, Mattie Do interview. Eventually, he's going to email everything because it takes him about 6-7 hours to send it because it's probably high in the gig level. Eventually, I'll get all those pieces and then put all those pieces up on our Cinematics and Find Your Film YouTube channel, which I will have links below where you guys can check it out. I'll put. I'm trying to beef up that channel a little bit more. There's a recent interview with me and Anderson, or actually review of the outfit with me and Anderson I will be back at it middle of the month. But most really cool is you're gonna get that Mattie Do interview very, very soon on our YouTube channel. Enough of all that. We love Mattie Do. Let's talk about what's interesting this week here on Cinematics as far as the week of April 1st, 2022. Actually, This movie is actually out as we're recording Wednesday, March 30th. It's out on AMC Plus, that's digital and rental, and on AMC Plus as well in theaters. It's a movie called Nitram, and it's directed by Justin Kurzel. And Bruce, I think this is the movie that either you or Eric really were banging the drums on wanting to see this first. I'm only 20 minutes in, so I'm very inexperienced. I kind of don't know what I'm talking about. Why don't you anchor this part of the review for Nitram?
Well, actually, both myself and Eric, I think we're about equally interested because I think we both heard about it from Jack Fitzpatrick on his YouTube channel, which I always forget the name.
Oh, right.
Let's crash this parade.
Thank you, and I'm so sorry, Jack. And he had mentioned this movie and how it was a really interesting movie and kind of a tough movie, but also really good. We're going to be a little bit vague about it, but other than to say that it takes place in the mid-90s in Tasmania, which is considered part of Australia. It is based on a true life story, which was an incident that occurred there that was quite notorious, involving a gentleman that we will not name. But in this movie, he's named Nitram. That is the main character, played by Caleb Landry Jones. And the bulk of this movie is what leads up to the incident. The incident is not the focus of the movie. And I'm going to let Eric kind of hop in on this in a minute here. I do want to mention Caleb Landry Jones is amazing as Nitram. He's really good. Doesn't mean you like him, but you're not supposed to like him. Judy Davis is his mother. Anthony LaPaglia is his dad. And Helen is played by Essie Davis, which you'd probably know from Babadook. And Justin Kurzel, the director, I believe is the director of Snowtown Murders, which I know him from that. So that made me kind of interested in it as well. This is the tough kind of movie, and I really want to hear Eric's take on it. Any of these movies based on real life people who commit heinous acts, where the committer of the heinous act is the focus of the movie, can be really touchy. In fact, just recently I believe it was on Find Your Film, we talked about Ted K. And I didn't react well to that for the opposite reason of this movie, because I think this movie does add a lot of value. For me, it's a couple things. It's a very interesting character study. That's part of it. Seeing this kind of messed up person, what makes them messed up, how they end up following this very eventually lethal path. But even more so for me, this movie, what works for me was watching all the ways that everything in his life failed to, I'm not saying you're going to fix him, right? But failed to curtail between his parents and, psychological establishment and the police, and there's steps all the way, the ability to buy guns easily. There's steps throughout this movie where things could have changed what happened and they don't. And this is quite a remarkable film. I think this is a really, really fine film, but I'd like to hear what Eric thinks as well.
Eric, your thoughts on, also, by the way, 2 years ago, Justin Kurzel directed also the true history of the Kelly Gang. Definitely worth a watch if you're interested in that as well. It's very beautifully shot film, and it's just an energetic watch. I think Bruce was shaking his head. I think he's already seen the movie. I believe Eric Holmes has not seen True History of the Kelly Gang yet. I think it's a movie that actually Eric Holmes would really, really love. Eric, your thoughts on Nitram?
I really like this a lot. I think this is a blueprint for movies like this going forward. A lot of times you'll have a biopic about a real life tragedy, and usually they focus on the killer of said tragedy, and a lot of times the killer is they're really intelligent. Oh, they wanted this to happen. Oh, that everything was, or they're seen as sympathetic when in fact they're just pathetic. And this Caleb Landry Jones portrays a person as an obnoxious man baby, and from what I read up, that seems pretty accurate to what the actual person was. This doesn't diminish what happens to the victims, because what he did was just what they call it with a gun, spray and pray. That doesn't take a mastermind to do something like that, nor does it diminish you to be a victim of that. All you have to do is be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I really appreciated that this movie didn't portray this person as sympathetic. He was just, everything he did was completely selfish, and he's a horrible person. And the movie portrayed him as such, even to the point where it would be in a car with someone and he'd reach over and mess with the steering wheel. And at one point that turns out to dire consequences for someone. Yeah, I just really appreciated that this movie portrayed a piece of garbage human as a piece of garbage human. And I would say this is very tough to watch. It's very infuriating to watch, but I think you can hate watch this, and not hate watch it in a way that, oh, this movie sucks, let me watch it and hate it, but hate watch as in, maybe there's some catharsis in watching someone act as Caleb Landry Jones's character in this does, and just hate that person. Like, oh, I just want to choke them. But this is really well done. And not to spoil, but I think this is probably important for some people to know, and we can cut this out if it's too much, but the tragedy is done very well, and there's nothing shown. You know what's coming, and they do it in a way that you understand what happened, but you don't see anything, which I think is probably the way to go for, because there's probably someone watching this movie that knew someone that knew victims, and they can watch this and hate watch it as the character is portrayed, but not feel they did not exploit the victims. As far as I can tell, it did not feel exploitative at all, which is usually undercuts movies like this. And so good job on Nitram for doing that.
Well, quick question on Nitram. I'm looking on IMDb. It won a whole bunch of awards and was nominated for obviously even more. One of the big awards was Caleb Landry Jones received Best Actor at the Cannes Film Festival. Do you guys understand why? First of all, both of you, I'm sure, highly recommend this film. But were you surprised about all the awards that Nitram received? If so, why do you think it's been roundly praised, this movie?
I think the exact thing that Eric just said is probably the reason, because this kind of movie is incredibly tough to do and not be either exploitive or just not effective sometimes. And this is it really threads that tough needle to hit on both counts. Where perfect example, he does such a great job, because every time you see his character, first of all, like Eric says, you hate him, but the incredible uncomfortable nature of his interactions are really highlighted. It's something as simple as him walking up to a door to say he wants to mow somebody's lawn. And the way even a little scene like that plays out has this level of tension and oddity. And a lot of that is his acting. I'm sure a big part is the script and direction too, but his acting, I think, from what I can see, is pretty amazing. So this is a really, really effective movie, like Eric says. And I went and watched things afterwards about the actual event, and it does make it even a little more chilling. And I can imagine this might be really tough for some people to watch that have more of a close relationship to that event. But I want to also highlight things like, filmmaking wise, that's really effective, where there's a scene between Nitram and his mom and the older woman who's kind of taken him in, Helen, at a certain location. And at first when I saw that, my mind didn't key in that location. But later on, when that location comes back, not only does it hit you hard, but now you're understanding why a seemingly random location appeared later in his life, and how, in a way, how petty that was and how horrifying that was. This is just a very effective movie.
Oh, okay, so that is Nitram. It's currently on digital, on demand this week, also in theaters stateside. So definitely, it came out March 30th. So this weekend of April 1st, if there's a very quality movie to check out, that will be Nitram. Let's go for the ratings. Eric Holmes, you have some thought. I see a thought bubble in your visage. What are you thinking about?
I don't know if we can say this, but the person is currently in prison. And to borrow a quote from Christopher Hitchens, it's a shame there's not a hell for him to go to.
Okay, very good. Christopher Hitchens quote. Now, what's your rating on Nitram?
That's 5 stars.
5 stars for you, Eric Holmes, and Bruce Purkey. How many stars are you going to throw down for Nitram?
I'm going to go 4.5, but it could become 5. It's definitely it's in my favorite of the year so far list, which is bigger than it's going to be at the end of the year, but it's pretty big right now.
You know, we're recommending films this week. Is this for both of you the big recommend as far as the week of April 1st goes?
No. Yeah.
Oh,
there's a bunch of them, actually. This is one of a few.
I have one that's higher, but they're pretty much a tie. So
okay, so So again, that is Nitram. That is our featured movie this week on CinemAddicts. Let's go to recommendations. Bruce, let's go to the week of April 1st. What movies are you looking forward to this week? Or is there any other movie that you saw per the purview that you would say, hey, go see this movie along with Nitram?
Well, there's other movies that I saw. I mean, I don't know if we want to mention stuff that's going to be on Find Your Film or just kind of leave that off to the side until we're going to talk about some other movies on Find Your Film. Let's just say that.
Okay, yeah.
So I tried to pick something for both of the weeks that we're going to talk about. I tried to pick something that might be a little more off the radar, that looked interesting to me, that might not get much press or anything. So for the first week, I do have a movie called Night's End. It is going to actually drop on Shudder as of today. It'll be tomorrow, the 31st, so March 31st on Shudder, by Jennifer Reeder. And it co-stars Michael Shannon. The basic idea of the story, from what I understand, is there's a character who is essentially like a shut-in in this apartment. I'm guessing, and I don't know for sure, that it may be COVID or something like that, right? Like he's stuck in this apartment. And he soon starts to believe, he's a very, very anxious person. Like he's kind of claustrophobic. He doesn't want to be in there. And he soon starts to believe that it may either be haunted or there's some kind of possession or something's going on. And I think he reaches out over the internet to Michael Shannon's character and somebody else to try to help him solve that. And I think it goes from bad to worse. So it sounds like it could be a really fun, interesting kind of a mostly one-hander. And I'm going to give it a try. See if it's good.
Okay, again, this is a biased reporting from Bruce Purkey because he is a huge Shudder fan, which biased is good when you're talking about Shudder because genre-wise, it's hard to beat Shudder as a streaming service. That is his recommendation for the first week in April. Eric Holmes, what do you have for the first week in April?
The one that I saw, I won't go too much into it, but I do want to mention it because I really liked it and hope people watch it, is called You Won't Be Alone.
Just never heard of it. Never. Check what out.
Check out You Won't Be Alone. Some of you won't like it at all. Some of
don't tell me I won't be alone. I'm alone, Eric. I'm a very sad Asian 50-year-old human being who's a podcaster. My own friends are Bruce Purkey, Eric Holmes, and Anderson. Oh, thank you.
Lovely person. Very huggable, lovable person.
Okay, so
sexual hugs, of course.
Oh, right.
And you've got me like with a collar and leash and a dog bowl in the corner. So how can you be alone?
Yes. You know, basically, it's just me.
Fresh water, Bruce. It's fine. You'll be fine.
Have you seen Audition? Sometimes he treats me like that.
And you know, actually, I still have not seen that movie Audition. Eventually, is that Takashi Miike who did that? No. Who did that? Okay. Yes. Takashi Miike. Eventually down the road.
One of the 10 films a year he directs.
Yes. So. By the way, I loved that interview with Mattie Do that I did. And I'm just going to say this. I love how she just dropped the name Takashi Miike during the interview when she says, like, she makes one of the things about Mattie Do's film work is she's very deliberate in her filmmaking. It'll take maybe 3 to 4 years to make a movie. And she said, no, the reason why is because life is precious and I really want to really soak into the narrative. And she goes, I'm no Takashi Miike. And that was not a knock on Takashi Miike. It's just Miike does so many different films. So going back to You Won't Be Alone, Eric Holmes, you have maybe a couple of sentences to say why people should hunt this movie down because they might think it's just a relationship movie or something.
It's, I mean, we'll talk about more of it on Find Your Film, but it's just a movie that really resonated with me. If you like Tree of Life or Dreamlike type movies, maybe this is up your alley. Other people watch it, be like, I don't know what this is. I hate this, or maybe somewhere in between. I don't know. But the one I wanted to bring up that I haven't seen that looked interesting, and that would be Barbarians. I just saw the trailer. It, read the thing. The synopsis looked like it might be good. Watched the trailer, and it looks almost like the movie Strangers, the home invasion movie. Mm-hmm. And it looks like a dark comedy version of that, almost like mixed Strangers and The Trip. It looks like it's going to be one of those type of movies. And it may sound like I'm speaking out both sides of my mouth after talking about Nitram, about how terrible tragedy is. And this one looks fun, but difference is this isn't based on actual tragedy. So, that's the difference between watching a snuff film and watching Nightmare on Elm Street, for example. Barbarians looks like it could be a pretty decent dark comedy, and I look forward to watching it.
Okay, this movie, it co-stars Catalina Sandina Moreno. She's one of the characters. Also, I believe there's another person. Well, let's see who else it stars. Iwan Rion. I forget how to pronounce his name, but he was one of the annoying characters from God. I forgot what character he played. He was just a very mean human being. Also, it also stars Tom Cullen. It's being released by IFC Midnight. You can check out Barbarians in select theaters, digital platforms, and on VOD April 1st. I will be interviewing a couple of these people on Friday. As Bruce Purkey knows, I'm so excited to see this, and Bruce Purkey is thinking, yep, Greg should have probably seen Barbarians to actually help with the CinemAddicts podcast, but Bruce is probably thinking, yeah, I know Greg. His interview with them is probably early in the morning on Friday, and he'll probably put the screener link on maybe 2 hours before the interview starts. And Bruce Purkey would be correct, because Bruce Purkey actually witnessed me today actually try to watch 3 to 4 movies within the span of 6 hours, which I failed at, and we'll get to that once you listen to us on Find Your Film. Bruce, why do you terrorize me every morning of the podcast by asking me how many movies I've seen? What do you just want to add to my anxiety and neurosis, Bruce?
I have knives, and they haven't been twisted enough, so I need to make sure I keep getting them in practice,
Fair enough. I don't mind if you're twisting your knives into me. There's another movie called The Contractor, which we'll be covering on our other podcast. It stars Chris Pine and who else? Who's Ben Foster and Kiefer Sutherland's in it. And before we get our CinemAddicts listeners, Eric and Bruce, should they hunt down The Contractor this week? What do you guys think very quickly on that?
I think so. It's because this is Ben Foster and Chris Pine get together after Hell or High Water.
Yeah, Hell and High Water. Yeah,
not quite as good as Hell or High Water, but there's certain I think it would make a good double feature, and I would certainly like to see Chris Pine and Ben Foster work more together. They're a good on-screen duo, I think.
Okay, I'm glad you liked it. I kind of liked it as well. In theaters, on digital, and on demand April 1st. Before we leave April 1st, Bruce, your thoughts on The Contractor on that as well?
Similar to Eric's, I would say if you like action movies, if you're really not the art house movie type of moviegoer, and you're kind of looking for something a little more meat and potatoes that kind of does what you think it might do, I think that you could do a lot worse than The Contractor. Right,
The Contractor, again, like Eric Holmes said, a lot of value add if you are a huge fan of Hell and High Water, because it reunites Chris Pine and Ben Foster. So there's going to be a bias if you actually rent or check out The Contractor in theaters, especially if you like those two actors. This might be a movie you like a little bit more than the average viewer. Now we're going to week 2 as far as our recommendations. Bruce, there's a movie that you were putting out here that I don't even know what this is. It's probably somewhere lost in my emails. Yeah, what is it?
This is a movie that actually got put into our box on our other podcast. Every week I pick a name out of the box of a movie to watch. And I believe Brian O'Connell?
Right? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he put this in the box, but it wasn't available. And I actually reached out to the filmmakers, and they said, right now we're just touring this documentary around to schools. So I think they spent a year actually touring this around to different schools in the United States, I believe, mostly. And it's finally coming available on the 8th or 9th, whatever that day is, that Friday.
Yes.
It is called Alaskan Nets. And I thought, you know what? This is a great time to bring this up, because I bet you it won't be on a lot of people's radar. And I haven't seen it, but I'm interested to see it. It is directed by Jeff Harasimowicz, I guess I would say is that name. It takes place in a small Alaskan fishing village called Metlakatia. I can't say it. Sorry, guys.
Nailed it.
The ever joke. Basically, the idea is this town is predominantly Native American, if not all. I haven't seen it. I don't know for sure. And the life there centers around both fishing and the culture and basketball. And it sounds like kind of like, you go to like the Texas towns or some of these southern towns where, Friday Night Lights, it's the thing that football is king. Well, it sounds like in this town, it's basketball. And the documentary is kind of about that interaction between those worlds. And it sounds really interesting to me and something I've never seen before. So I'm looking forward to seeing that movie.
Well, so this is a recommendation from our CinemAddicts Facebook group member, Brian O'Connell. If you are not a CinemAddicts Facebook group member, get on it. We'll have links on our show notes as well. Every week I give Blu-rays and DVDs, and we have different Blu-rays and DVD giveaways for our CinemAddicts group members. And actually, the most important part of that is actually our members are just as big, if not even bigger cinephiles than me, Eric Holmes, Bruce Purkey, and Anderson Cowan. And I think on a daily basis, we receive great recommendations in that group. So if you're looking for movies that are just sort of outside your own purview, join our group, because we have just a huge, just diverse group that'll give just different recommendations. And, it's one of these things that really will broaden your own movie going palette or movie watching palette. As far as Alaskan Nets go, it recently received the Audience Choice Award from the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, which is really cool. Another little thing is it is executive produced by Chris Pratt. So Fishing and Basketball, exec produced by Chris Pratt, and received an Audience Choice Award, meaning it's a crowd-pleasing movie. Might be something interesting to watch on digital and on demand April 8th. Hopefully, you know what? I have an email which I just opened. Bruce Purkey, I will email the publicist, and maybe all three of us can get, and maybe even Anderson. Maybe we'll get Anderson, because we know Anderson out of all four of us, he's the big documentary guy. So maybe all of us can see Alaskan Nets before April 8th. That is your pick, Bruce Purkey. Eric Holmes, what you got?
The one I got is kind of, I guess, softball, but it's Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Directed by the two guys that did the corpse farter movie, Swiss
the
Army
Daniels, Man. The Dans, right?
Yeah, I still haven't seen Swiss Army Man, but I did watch Death of Dick Long. I love that movie, and Daniel Scheinert is one of the two directors of Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Early buzz on this has been extremely positive, and that just gets me even more excited to check this out. So. Yeah, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I have no idea what it's about. I saw the trailer. Still have no idea what it's about. Just say it looks absolutely insane, and hoping it's good insane.
I showed the trailer to my kids, and they're like on board to watch it too. So that's an interesting sign, I think.
Yeah, okay. So Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. It's getting a lot of really great word of mouth. The reason why it comes out April 8th, it's a nationwide rollout. It's in select theaters as we speak, but very, very few theaters. But again, not even a negative word from this movie at all. And I think this is a movie that will probably have legs. Okay, before we go, any final thoughts? This is CinemAddicts. This is our little CinemAddicts. It's only the first 2 weeks. Anderson and I will be back for the middle of the month, to round out the month. Any final thoughts from you, Eric Holmes, regarding any movies to watch, anything our listeners should check out, anything else?
I would say check out all of Mattie Do's movies. I've watched 2 of them so far. There's her second movie, Dearest Sister, that I haven't watched yet. But the 2 I've seen are Chantilly and The Long Walk are both pretty amazing. So I can't imagine Dearest Sister's, even if it's the worst of the bunch, it's probably still going to be pretty good. And
what makes Mattie Do an amazing filmmaker? You said both films are amazing. Why is she amazing yeah?
First of all, they're written very well, which is her husband's Christopher Larson. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite writers, and they're just I don't know, they just really move, but they move in kind of odd directions. And I just appreciate it. Yeah, they're just fun movies. They're kind of movies that you think you've seen before, but then there's just that little twist or little something extra to it that just kind of sets it above.
Yeah, very uncompromising. Would you agree? Uncompromising, Bruce? Mattie Do's storytelling with Christopher Larson, that kind of reunion?
I would. I also say that I think The Dearest Sister, which is her middle movie that you haven't seen yet, is on Shudder as well. So if people want to check that out, it's available. She also did an episode on the Creep Show series that is on Shudder as well. on season 3, so that's something you can watch. We want to see the kind of the fun, goofier side of her, because all the rest of hers are pretty solidly dramatic. And I would just add on to what Eric said as far as her style and everything. I think, or between the two of them, her writing and her directing, his writing, I think that what I find really interesting is that, at least in the ones I've seen, she seems to do this kind of combination of, there's a lot of, there's supernatural elements, but they're not used generally in a way to like spook you out or scare you outright. They're actually used as dramatic elements within a world that's pretty grounded. Even when it's fantastical, it's still pretty grounded. And I think that makes a really interesting, very unique kind of approach that seems to be really in her, I don't know, in her DNA or their DNA. It just seems to really be kind of a lane that they are in at the moment. So
that's a great analysis, Bruce, because it's one of these things where I know as very little compared to you and Eric, but just from watching The Long Walk, every single section of violence or maybe time travel, she's mentioned time travel, every little thing within most genre films would use that for effect. But like you said, she uses it to actually further the story and to actually deepen our humanity within the context of what The Long Walk is about. Also, sorry about that bump. It's just a very, like I said, uncompromising regarding some of the stakes that are in that film, and a lot of it is very heartbreaking, and it'll make you, dear movie watcher, think about what would you do if you had a certain power to communicate with spirits. What would you do? Would you be selfish about it? Would you be more human about it? Or would you hold humanity back? There's a lot of great philosophical questions behind The Long Walk, but it's also a very fun effing movie. And hopefully you'll be... Eric, should they day drink or night drink while they're watching The Long Walk, or should they just be sober and enjoy it? Just clean and sober. Watch it just even keeled.
If you're on the wagon, good for you, and stay there and watch it sober. Otherwise, maybe have a drink if you feel like it. Especially if you have the Blu-ray, it's got a recipe for making what's called the long sip, which is quite delicious.
Oh, were you the only one we're gonna get released a video on our YouTube channel? Were you the only one to make the long sip? Because I haven't checked out the videos yet, Eric. Were you the guinea pig to actually make the long sip?
No, we all made it. There's so when you get the Blu-ray,
did Bruce make it?
Yeah. But there is one ingredient in particular which may be tough to get to, but other than that, it's pretty simple drink, but it's really good. And I'm not.
It's a human finger. I'll give it to you now.
It's a human finger. Wow. Okay, speaking of human fingers, check out our review of Skullhead Face on Find Your Film as well. You're going to have a lot of limb discussions and blood and gore if you want to hear the sort of the after midnight version of CinemAddicts with our brethren. Check out our episode on Find Your Film. Other than that, as we like to do on FYF, final thoughts from our FYF co-host and CinemAddicts co-host, Bruce Purkey. What do you want to say?
I would just say, if we haven't sold you on Mattie Do, just remember that there is at least one thing that she's put out that has Michael Rooker and a floating head with entrails.
Very good point. And finally, go check out Anderson Cowan's Groupers. We miss you, bud. Right, Eric Holmes?
Oh, yeah. And definitely check out Groupers.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.